Hi, my name is Fritzi Horstman, and welcome to Compassion in Action. My guest today is Philip Folsom. Philip Folsom is an anthropologist, cultural development expert, veteran, and CEO of Wolf Tribe. He is also the founder of Humankind, a holistic consulting agency, as well as Sparta, a critically acclaimed PTSD and suicide prevention program for warriors. Philip's clients include organizations such as Microsoft, Apple, and SpaceX, and major universities worldwide, where he conducts innovative adventure programming such as Vision Quests, caving, high ropes challenge courses, Zen archery, and interactive workshops with horses and wolves. I invited Philip to work on our film that is about to come out called Veterans Behind Bars. And Philip says the time of the lone wolf is over. Philip Folsom, welcome to Compassion in Action. I have spent the week learning about Philip Folsom.
Oh, yay. All right.
Yay, because if you don't read this,
Mhm.
how do I know what we're doing?
Yeah, that's that's a big one in the men's space.
And of course, I read The Warrior King,
Yep.
Magician, Lover, and Joseph Campbell. So I'm almost up to date here. I haven't fully finished Iron John, but I know it's important. I know it's important.
It's really the I guess we're launching into it, but the Iron John is an initiation story, and there, initiation is a central theme to masculine development, and it's one of the big missing pieces in our current society.
Yes, and initiation and fatherhood, and the father in the male's life needs to be reimagined or pre-imagined the way it used to be, the way the tribes used to be. Yes,
And
speak.
more important, the father is, and Bly talks about this. It's moving into the house of your second father, because our fathers can only take us so far, in the same way that our mothers can only take us so far. All right, the mother role is to prepare us to be a functional human in society, which is domestication, and also to keep us safe so that 8-year-old boys don't fall out of trees and die and get eaten by lions. Like that's our mother's job. And then we need to go into our father's house, and that means the separation from our mother. And we need to start taking risks and be dangerous and start exploring, honor and duty and service to the tribe. But we need to go to our second father's house, that's Iron John. That's the wild man, which is really the collective masculine consciousness of the tribe, which is the uncles, and it's the shaman and the older men, and they're the ones that take us into our individuality within the tribe. And our father can't do that because our father holds this psychological place of he was either too much or not enough or not around. So we need other men to be able to actually conduct that initiation process. And part of the hero's journey cycle is we need to resurrect our father from the underworld. Otherwise, we become him. And so we need our second fathers, which are the mentors and our accountability partners, and all of those other men in the tribe.
Right. So you talk about resurrecting the father, right? So now we're in the hero's journey.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess we start. Have you heard about Michael Gurian? And he talks about the three families. He talks about the core family and then the second family, which includes the mentors, just exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
then he talks about the third family, which is society helping this child grow into a male, and especially for the men, that this is what the man needs. So you both are in line right there. So I want to talk about the lone wolf before we get into the hero's journey, because I think that's such an important piece. In prison, people are living in their cells alone.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do my circles, I ask the men and the women, how old were you when you decided you were on your own? And 95% of the hands go up, and it ranges from 3 years old to 17. So the idea of the lone wolf is embedded in is in the culture. I even had that thought myself, is I'm on my own. I got to do this by myself. No one's going to take care of me. So what is the problem with the lone wolf, and how can we create a new system in a prison where everybody's afraid of each other?
Yeah. The just going back to the beginning of the big culture or tribe conversation that runs through all of this is that we're wired at a cellular level, for connection with members of humanity. But there's a top end to that in terms of how many people that we can connect authentically and vulnerably with. And that number is 150. And, that's Dunbar's number. He's an anthropologist who did studies on neocortex brains with primates. And every primate, based on the size of their neocortex, has a certain top end of relationships they can manage. And with humans, it's 150. So as soon as we start living in communities that are larger than 150, then we degrade what's known as our honor culture, which is tribe and kinship. And we shift into pride-based culture, which is I'm on my own, like you just shared. Like the moment we enter a big school, we're on our own. And that's why we're so desperate for that sense of belonging that we need for a survival. It used to be physiological survival, and now it's psychological survival. And so it's what drives gangs. It's what drives repeat bad relationships. Is that we know that if we're feeling isolated, then we have a death response from our amygdala. I mean, and it's pervasive and chronic in our culture, because the moment you leave your house, you are isolated, because you can be surrounded by, where we live in Los Angeles, we have 11 million people, and none of them are friends or allies or kin. And most people in Los Angeles don't even know the names of their neighbors. Like it's that isolated, which would be shocking to be, living in the woods and you don't know the folks in the cave next to you. Like you would need to know that for your self-preservation. And yet we just have surrendered any sense of authenticity with each other. So we're in chronic stress all the time. We're constantly, just swamped by cortisol and norepinephrine, stress hormones, and it's just wrecking our immune systems and our digestion with gut health and our libidos and our critical thinking and our compassion and empathy. Like it all just goes right out the window. And then we're in that sick society.
Yes. So housing units have about 200 people. So that's almost manageable. But it's when they get into the yard with 800 people that it begins to crumble. So perhaps what we need to start thinking is smaller units of people where we can connect and thrive together. And then maybe bring that connection, those tribal connections, into a more cohesive environment instead of the lone wolf surviving by himself. And this is also the officers, right? They feel overwhelmed by all the people around them, and they're in a lone wolf, but they do have their tribe. They have the officer tribe, right?
Yep. And this is not just, prisons and warrior reintegration. This is a societal issue, that people behave very differently when it's impersonal. Like if you go to Target and they don't charge you for something, you're like, yeah, I got a free bottle of shampoo. And who cares about Target, this faceless, giant company? But you go to a mom and pop store and they forget to ring you up for your shampoo, then you're like, hey, I'm going to do business with you next week. I need you to be in business. and you get this personal response of honor and integrity, and it's reciprocal. You know that your sense of duty or your integrity demonstration is going to have a return from them. And that little currency of service and support and collaboration, like that's a reciprocal engine that, just keeps the wheel turning. And the moment we become impersonal, like the yard, it's no longer functional. And so we degrade into I use the lone wolf analogy because that's a very loud example is that lone wolves die. They have 2 weeks and then they starve to death or they wander into the wrong territory and they get killed by another pack that is intact. So the lone wolf analogy is just like a lone person, either in a corporation or prison or going to a university, and you're lost. So that veterans hub, which is
Yes.
just a revolutionary concept,
Yes.
is echoed on the other side of the bookshelf that, at my work down at USC Marshall School of Business. They've created the Masters of Business for Veterans program, where it's a cohort of only veterans, and it's 100 men and women who all have a shared sense of belonging. They all did this thing. They all have affiliation with each other, and you have automatic kinship. And that's what the Veterans Hub is doing. It's automatic kinship.
Yes.
And so the graduation rates are 100% because you have all of that resiliency and accountability and collaboration that comes from tribe. And the same thing with the Veterans Hub, particularly the Transition Center, is they have no recidivism. It's a game-changing model to pull people together into, some sort of kinship system, wherever that is applicable, wherever they can, we can build the infrastructure of that. That's kind of the solution, it's like shop local. Yeah, shop local.
Yes, and change global, right? We'll transform global because when we have a functioning tribe, we go from team to tribe, right? Your book. When we go into a tribe, there's accountability and it's the honor system, right? Suddenly you talk about in many of your talks about the reciprocity of the honor system. Can you explain why that's so important? It's kind of in the store that you were talking about, but it's a bigger deal, right?
Well, accountability is not free. There's a risk to holding somebody accountable or coaching them or giving critical feedback, or there's a risk to that because it's not perceived well in our society. And so when people are not in an intact, team or tribe or honor culture, and then they receive critical feedback, which we all need, and it's universal and it's happening all the time, we interpret it as a threat or shame.
Yes.
And so that's perceived as excommunication from the tribe. And that's a death sentence because, you're isolated, you run out of the pack, and you've got 2 weeks to find another pack or you starve to death. And so when people feel like they're inadequate or they're going to be abandoned, then it leads to this whole cascade of maladaptive behaviors. So we can't afford to hold people accountable. We can't afford to be authentic. We can't afford to be vulnerable unless we have that foundation first. And that's the big lesson behind, resiliency and reintegration with warrior culture. But it's also true with families, communities, sports teams, corporations. Like this challenge that us veterans are dealing with is directly connected to society's challenges. I use that term canary in the coal mine. Like we are it. The things that are happening to veterans, police, fire, trauma room, nurses, like those people who are in high stress situations, if they're cratering, it's, you know, a years, months away from our communities and our high schools. It's right there. So if we don't handle this, it's coming to our house at some point.
It is. It's the same with the officers too. There's hardly enough staff in all the prisons in the United States to successfully safely run a prison. And so it's all coming home to roost, because what happens in prison doesn't stay in prison, and what happens in hospitals doesn't stay in the hospitals. All of this is what happens in the police department doesn't stay in the police department, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. That when the canary dies, it's getting to the miners next.
Right.
That gas hits everyone, and and suicide is now the number one cause of in the line of service or duty death in police and fire. Like they're not worried about getting shot by criminals or dying in a burning building. The biggest risk to police and fire is suicide as of the last couple of years. So, that suicide used to be a veteran conversation. We've lost under 8,000 soldiers to combat since 9/11. We've lost over 150,000 to suicide in that same period of time. And, that was something that we collectively agreed on, that we pay veterans to go do the high trauma experiences that we don't want to. And then we thank them for their service, but we don't welcome them home, and we don't ask them, we don't reintegrate them back into society, because we don't want that in our society. In the same way, we don't want to deal with, what's it take to kill a cow?
Yeah.
But we want to eat the meat.
Right.
So there's this weird gap that we have between all this high trauma behavior that society is not currently dealing with. And it's Freud has this theory of hydraulics, that everything you would push down is going to come out in a very maladaptive, high pressure way somewhere. And we see it, across the board with our critical or clinical anxiety, depression, addiction. It's all just off the charts right now.
It's off the charts. And what I believe your solution is kinship is coming back to our tribes and finding our tribes. It almost feels alien to me to find a tribe. Like, I watch you work with these men and gather these people so that they can connect. And it's like, it almost has to be an artificial scenario for us to get this going. Or that's what I'm sensing.
Yeah. Our artificial times require artificial means. And we should never have to go pay money to enter a building and lift heavy things. But that's a weird thing that we have to do in today's society so that we can maintain our bone density and our muscle mass and be vital, is that we no longer have to move. Here we are sitting in our chairs, talking to each other on our computers.
Yeah.
So it's an artificial time, but it requires artificial means. And the same thing is true with tribe, is that, we used to have to be together to survive. It was non-negotiable. Like, you don't get to hunt a bison by yourself. No. And the wolves know this, which is why, they have such an embedded, kinship system within a pack. It's the default setting. It's non-negotiable. And now it's optional, or seemingly optional. And so people don't do it. But, all of and I do a lot of, executive coaching, particularly with men, and they're universally isolated. And another one of my mentors, Dr. Stephen Johnson from the LA Men's Center. And he says, if you remove alcohol, sports, and your job, men have no friends. Oh, and all the men who are watching this, do that checklist. And not acquaintances, and not your 5,000 Facebook friends, but, the men that you can count on to help you move. how many men could you call, truck or not, who are going to help you move? And
I,
that's the barn raising principle.
yes.
I grew up in a very rural area, and when we put our barn up, the neighbors are required out of honor to show up and help. And the reciprocity is you owe them a day of putting up all those heavy beams when they're putting their barn up. Like that's the way that we're designed to function.
Yes, and there's that guilt when you don't give back sometimes, or when someone calls you and you say, I can't come. There's that, it's like, so, but I want to have that obligation to my tribe. I want to do something for them. And um, but back to the men who have alcohol, sports, and what was the other one?
Good job.
Their job. I call them couch warriors because I feel like they're ready for action. They just don't know where to put this energy. And I mean, and it's not to me, it's not a derogatory thing. It's just that they don't know what to do. They don't know how to mobilize.
Yeah.
And so, and the same thing in prison. How do we get our men back in the game, back on the hunt? I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
I think that's what your work is, and it's successful and it's inspiring.
Well, you and I both witnessed, how many service dogs are being trained. How many advanced degrees are being achieved in that Veterans Hub.
Yes.
I mean, and they're looking at, building a sustainable horticulture, yard. I don't know if that's in Soledad or Quentin but one of those, they're looking at building a farm.
Yes.
And that's kind of, the Scandinavian approach. It's a rehabilitation approach.
Yes.
And instead of a punishment approach. And that echoes into all of the anthropological work of when you go do something hard, you go to war, you have a bad hunt, or you have forced to kill another man, you lost a piece of your soul. It was very clear in almost every indigenous culture that you experienced something traumatic and you lost a piece of your soul that needs to be reclaimed, which is really the premise behind the Vision Quest, the purification rituals of the Sweat Lodge, going on a pilgrimage. Like all of these are warrior reintegration rituals that are rehabilitation based. It's, hey, don't just reclaim that piece of your soul, but use that experience as a transformative event that levels you up to provide even more service. Become that wounded healer who brings something back to, shepherd the other inevitable traumatized men back into the tribe. And that's the shamanic, principle. In every indigenous culture has very structured reintegration rituals that are rehabilitative. They're not punitive.
Yes. So most of the men and women in prison have done something that has hurt their soul. A piece of their soul has been destroyed. And there have been no reintegration rituals for them. I mean, sometimes they do it for their gang, which is their tribe, but sometimes they do it for self-defense. Whatever it is still a piece of their soul. So, and now we're putting them in prison and they're being punished, right? As you say. So what can we do to bring to reintegrate the men that are living in prison so that they can begin to start finding purpose and getting on with what they're here for?
Yeah. What that Veterans Hub is doing is it's creating this human foundation of belonging where they can start working on the trust and the safety that allows them to move first.
Yes.
And underneath all of that, there's this larger inclusion to the alignment of society, that we're all part of something that is collective. That's the shared vision for what used to be our tribe, but we're now living in the grand experiment of America, which is in a wildly ambitious attempt at creating a super tribe with, a shared set of core values. That's the Constitution.
Oh,
A guiding principle, the American dream, which is our shared vision. And it's a revolutionary thing that America is doing, is trying to look at creating a tribal consciousness of belonging and connection and reciprocity, all of these big human success drivers at a massive scale. And
yes.
and it's crumbling at the moment,
Yes.
which is really disconcerting to have people dismiss this American experiment, because this is Gondor. America is Gondor to the world. It's where that American dream is a real thing in the rest of the world, and yet we just are throwing it out like the baby in the bathwater. Like we're just surrendering our institutions as opposed to fixing and revitalizing our institutions. Like, the church is done. Oh, government's corrupt. Oh, science is bought. Throw it out, burn it down. It's like, we can't afford to do that, because that's what's holding us up.
Right.
So back to the prisoners, residents, inmates, whatever
Yes.
whatever the right term is on that.
Incarcerated individuals, whatever. Yes.
At a societal level, we need to invite them in and remind them that they are part of our shared dream. They're a part of us.
Yes.
That's the vision
Yes.
and it has to do with freedom and meaning. Like that, those are the big psychological pursuits of humanity, and that America, is attempting to do.
Yes.
And we need to include those men and women in that freedom and meaning conversation. Otherwise, all you have is nihilism.
Yes. Yes.
And that college students, the most privileged people in the history of human society, are nihilistic. And
yes.
so
I think I was too. I was existential for a while. There is no meaning. I think it's a phase. I think we just have to let them live it out. But
yeah.
You're right. They are privileged, and they do have an obligation to bring meaning to the world and to honor their freedom. I agree. But they also, they're privileged. So
yeah. And there's maybe that an incarcerated individual conversation is kind of a very extreme example of redemption.
yes.
And the director of the Masters of Business for Veterans program down at USC, he calls the military a leadership incubator.
Yeah.
Meaning these are some of the most highly trained, honor, value, mission-based humans that we have in society. There's very few people that have had multiple years of training to be honorable and mission-based and team players, and yet we're marginalizing them, whereas we need them. We need that ethos to back into our society, but we're marginalizing them. And people who go to prison, they also have something to contribute to society, which is the redemptive journey. And my favorite people are, recovered drug addicts and alcoholics and people who have been through the shit, combat veterans. Those people who have gone through the forge, they're different than everyone else. And you call them, oh, she's an old soul. Like, no, she's just been through this shit and it transformed her.
Yes.
And that's tremendous value. And yet we're kind of throwing that out.
Well, it's part of the hero's journey, right? They're going into hell. They're going into the shadow, the deep shadow. And I think when they really understand what they're capable of negatively, they also find out what they're capable of to bring, like as you say, the treasure back to the world, right? Can you explain that? Can you explain this hero's journey in 2 words or less?
Yeah, we would need a whole conversation for that.
I
But
know.
the hero's journey is the universal plot line of not only every book and movie and story in human history, but it's the unavoidable plot line of sequential events in every human life or project. And the reason why it's so powerful and why we keep retelling it is that it allows us to kind of answer three big questions that are universal in everything with humanity. And the first one is, where am I? Like that's a big question. So where am I in my relationship? Where am I in my career? Where am I in my health, my finances, my spiritual practice? Like, where am I? And then what's coming next? Because if you know the hero's journey and you know where you are on the map, you know what's going to happen next. When we watch a Marvel movie or The Matrix or anything, like when we see it, we're like, okay, I know what's coming next. Like we know it because it's such a familiar story. There's going to be a descent into hell, and
Yes.
there's going to be transformation. There's going to be a massive personality shift that comes after that darkness. And then that is going to empower the hero of the story to be able to provide some sort of greater freedom and meaning to everyone around them. Like that's it. But the third last question is if you know what's coming next, then you know who you need to be to make it happen.
Mm,
And
mm.
if you can answer those three questions, you've got a pretty good shot at navigating life successfully. And the hero's journey gives us that map. And you know that dark moment in the story where the hero is completely defeated. It always happens. They get betrayed, abandoned, utterly defeated, and then there's a resurrection. Like that, there is no resurrection without crucifixion. It's in all of our stories, you know, like Dorothy has to be completely defeated.
Yes.
Like you're never going home. There is no wizard. You're stuck in this crazy land forever. And she has to accept that reality before she can accept the fact that she's always had the slippers. She has powerful allies. She's the main character of the story. She is the heroine of the story. Like she cannot have that realization without that crucifixion of, oh, nobody's coming to save me. You know, I'm never going home before she can realize that she could always go home. And so that's universal in every story. And really going to prison, that's that moment. That is the
Yes.
transformational moment in most of these people's lives. Going to combat may be that going to hell crucifixion. But the people who do come through it and are revitalize everything that they touch the rest of their life.
That's Joseph Campbell's quote, right?
Yep.
He
Yep.
says, the influence of vital people vitalizes, right?
Yeah. The precursor to that is we are not on this journey to save the world. We're on this journey to save ourselves. But in doing so, we end up saving the world because the influence of vital people vitalizes. So, like, yes, the people who are in prison, you went to hell, and whatever the cause is of that, you know, you can blame your dad and society and parents, yourself. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
But you know, you've gone to hell. If you can be part of that redemptive resurrection process, then you're bringing that to everything that you touch the rest of your life. And is it appropriate to talk about Michael Todd?
Absolutely. But yes, please talk about Michael Todd. But I just want to highlight that is that purpose and meaning is the thing that emboldens us and keeps us going, right? That is just, it is the key to our lives.
Yeah, it's the Holy Grail.
Right.
That is the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail is the cup of Christ that if you drink from it, and more importantly, if you provide it to the king who drinks from it, then he is healed. And then if the king is healthy, then the kingdom is healthy. So we are all the king and the queen of our kingdoms. And that's the Holy Grail analogy.
Yes.
That's vitality. It's life.
Yes. And isn't that the acronym of one of your courses, or you have to go through the Grail? Isn't it?
Yeah. Grails is actually our goal setting acronym, that we use in the men's group that I'm part of. And it's kind of like a SMART goals, but we do it for the four big houses of our life, which is, our king house, which is our vision, our innovation, our aspirations, our warrior house, which is our fitness and results, and our magician house, which is our spiritual practice and mastery, and then our relationship lover house, which is really about our belonging to not just our people, but our sense of belonging to ourselves and the world. And we do this every quarter. Every quarter we go through this Grails process, and it's a way of being intentional and engaging with life. It's artificial. It's an artificial way of taking stock of where am I, what's coming next, who do I need to be to get there. So, and Grails was very intentional because it speaks exactly to what you're sharing. It's revitalization.
Yes, and but it also has, you've embedded like ancient meaning to it all, right? So it's really right in this male group of aspiring men, right? You're training our men to be extraordinary, and discipline is part of that, right? I mean, I think discipline is it's overemphasized, but it is the key to transforming ourselves, because nobody wants to do anything. Nobody wants to get up in the morning.
Yeah. Those two big psychological grails or goals, which are freedom and meaning, that's the thing that everybody's questing after. And, you can look at money and health and sex and there's freedom and meaning in all of those pieces. Yes. But discipline is what drives the freedom. Compassion is what drives the meaning. So discipline and compassion are the way that we pursue freedom and meaning.
So that's basically you and me, right? Compassion Prison Project and Wolf Tribe.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know the discipline it's changing my life, because every time I say I'm going to do something and then I do it, I'm also engaging time and honoring this sacred time that I have left on this planet. And that gives even more meaning to this journey that I'm on.
Hey, Fritzi, when did you have that awareness that you have limited time left?
It was the work I'm doing with Phil Stutz, is that
okay.
That this is a sacred second. Every second is sacred here. All of it.
Yeah. So you're no longer immortal. Young people are immortal. They're not looking. That's the reason why they do so much stupid shit.
Yes.
Is that they're waiting for their life to start. And you and I, we know we have limited time left, and it's time to get after it.
And to get as much of it done, as many people helped as we can. This podcast will be available to 1 million people in prison. So that's the effect of this sacred hour that we have.
Yeah.
It's
I give you a hug because I love you.
Yeah, I mean, but discipline, right? We cannot waste a minute. And my son is playing video games half the day.
Mhm.
And he, like you
That's
said,
he's immortal.
he's
He's
a mere
waiting for
mortal.
life to start.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, the beginning of the hero's journey is the call to adventure, which is there's something that needs to be addressed. Uh, do you do you want to go train to be a Jedi? Do you want to fight Apollo Creed? Do you want to like whatever it is? And the initial response to that by all the main characters is no. They refuse the call.
Yeah.
And for the same reason, your son's playing video games. Um, the reason, I have work tomorrow. I'm too busy. Um, I don't
I'm,
have permission. Like,
I'm tired.
yeah, just a litany of reasons why we do not answer the call. But um, there's a great Greek parable that says, "Fate guides those who will, and those who won't, she drags." And so, fate is always saying, there's something you should be doing, there's something you can be doing, but
Mm.
the more repeatedly that we refuse that, then the louder it escalates to the point where she drags you, and
Yeah.
she will drag you to prison. If you refuse to call long enough, she will drag you to prison, or she will drag you to addiction, or she will drag you to divorce and disablement and drunkenness, whatever that tool that she uses to force you into life. And it's a dark journey, and that's the next phase of the hero's journey. It's why we see, you know, all the struggles in those movies. It's like, oh, don't do that, Iron Man. Like, yeah, or whoever, Neo, Harry Potter. Like, don't. You're
No.
doing the wrong thing, but it's inevitable, and that's an unavoidable phase of the hero's journey. Is that you're going to go into the road of trials. You're going to have your suffering, and those are all transformative events that eventually force you to look at yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then back to the initial conversation, that moment of actually looking at yourself is the initiation process. So
Uh,
we're designed to have a cadre of men or women who takes us through that adversity, and there's always something really hard in it. It's a ritual tattoo or a scar, or they send you off on your own, on a vision quest, or there's always some big adversity component.
in
But
gangs, they
it's
jump you.
ritualist. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Shadow.
road of trials portion of that. Basic
Yes.
training for
Yeah.
all you veterans watching.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
your
yeah.
road of trials. And it's all designed to break down an old adolescent operating system that you're the most important thing in the world. And we all start as we're the most important thing in the world.
The
And our
pride
mothers teach
base.
us that. But it's like I'm this golden child. I'm unique and I'm special and I'm, you know, unquestionable, and that's supposed to have been for men be ended at adolescence, where you're pulled from your mother's house and you're no longer just about serving yourself, and then you're pushed through the abyss, that big transformational crucifixion event, where you then come out the other side as something completely different. And that completely different is the upgraded operating system of service.
Yeah.
You're now no longer serving yourself. You're now built and tasked with serving the tribe. And that missing event is why so many men continue to loop. Call to adventure, I go into the ship, right? And then I retreat back to my known world, which is I'm just waiting for the next call to adventure. That just loops until men eventually get faced with cancer, divorce, aging, some big event, or prison, right? In our conversation.
Yes. Well, and in Iron John, he says some of these processes take 10 or 15 years, these initiations, right?
Yeah.
It's, the divorce is an initiation, or the prison is an initiation. So, and then, but we have to, I think we don't have time anymore to wait these 15 years. We all have to start waking up and getting into service now.
Well, the thing that the challenge with that equation is that there needs to be an involved group of other people who are holding you accountable to go through the initiation. No one can self-initiate.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter how many horrible events you have, divorce, cancer, prison, if you don't have a group of bucket men in Iron John who help the hunter bucket out the lake, if you don't have that support group of other men or women invested in your transformation and healing, then you will run. And nobody wants to be crucified. We all run. Jesus tried to run. Like, why have you forsaken me? So we all look at like, oh, divorce, prison, cancer. Like, I'm going to run back to where I was at least safe. So we don't go through the abyss, which is the transformational point. And that's why we're stuck as a society, is that we're not taking our people through that process. We're not bringing them back from war. We're not reintegrating them back from prison. We're not, creating the resurrection from the crucifixion.
Wow. What a symbolic image here. And for all the people in prison, we have got to figure this out. What is our resurrection, and how do we do this within the prison walls, but then also as we return? So for everyone returning, we have to find a symbolic event or something besides breakfast. Breakfast, the first breakfast is a symbolic event. But it has to be, I think it has to be a tribal gathering or something.
Yeah. And again, very hard to do at scale.
Right.
That's the hard part. Without having the experience, of going in and meeting these good men, there's a circle of 100 good men.
Yes.
They're redeemable. They're valuable. They have firsthand experience with crucifixion.
Yes.
Most people don't have it at all. Like, here you have actual eyewitness experiences of profound darkness that should be a roadmap for other people experiencing their own version of darkness, whether it be that divorce or cancer or whatever it is. Like, there's very few people who are going through that and bringing others along with them. And we're losing generations of those people. Same thing with combat vets. We're not hearing their stories. So we just go back into Ukraine. We just go back because we're not hearing their stories. And those stories are potent. There's not glamorous, people. It's not, it is not war is not a glamorous thing. And yet we have multiple generations now who kind of view that as, well, it'll just be some drones and some missile strikes. And, it's like, no, it's not. Like, sit with a combat veteran and talk about a dead kid. And you will go like, oh, what are we doing? Like, we need those stories back in our society.
And same with people in prison. Let's talk about their childhood trauma. What are those war stories that we were hearing? This abuse, this terrorizing of our children. these stories have to be told, and they have to be held. It's not just being told, it has to be held. And then that is, I mean, is that the treasure? Is that some of the treasure, or is what is the treasure? Because we're on this hero's journey, and we slay the dragon and we bring back the treasure,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we don't we never slay the dragon. The reason why there's universally dragons in every culture, which is a weird one, right?
Mm.
It's as ubiquitous as a flood analogy. Every culture's got this weird mythical flood thing that happened. It's like, okay, what's that all about? But we also have dragons. We have dragons in, Mesopotamia and Mesoamerica and China and Europe. Like, why do we have these dragons and all these stories? And it's not dinosaurs, right? It is a symbol of eternity. It is an eternal thing that is with us. And
Oh,
reptiles shed their skin and they are reborn in a different version of themselves. And there's something malevolent, but also something powerful that is undying, and it's with us. And so really, when you talk about pre-trauma, that's the birth of the dragon. And it's going to be focused on one of two things. It's going to be you were abandoned or you were found inadequate. Those are the core psychological wounds of people. And those rewire our brain to view every scenario that we're in as a threat to our safety and connection. So we'll be abandoned and we'll die, or we're going to be found inadequate and we will be excommunicated and we will die. So that big scary dragon that is with everyone is really the thing that runs our life and dictates our choices and our actions.
yep.
Until we go into, Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter contains the treasure you seek. That's the moment where you actually get to look at the dragon, which is yourself. At some point, there's an ownership of, oh, it's not my dad, it's not the government, it's not anything external, like it's me. And I have carried this dragon with me my entire life. And then, so we build a relationship with this shadow within ourselves, and that actually becomes our greatest gift. So,
Yes.
so we don't kill the dragon, we learn to ride the dragon.
Ah, okay.
And that's and everybody who's really successful at anything, they're riding a ferocious dragon. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. He has never forgotten it.
No.
And that wound, that core wound, which could have just destroyed him and made him like, oh, you're a loser, you're a failure, go be a plumber. He's like, no. I'm going to deal with this thing. I'm going to ride this power source the rest of my life. And people who are doing significant things in life, they have a wound that's powering that journey. You have yours. I have mine. And if you follow the scent trail of that dragon, you go back to abandonment or inadequacy. And it's a superpower. And, Michael Todd's doing it. He's riding his dragon into something that is beautiful and powerful and service oriented. And every great person has that.
Yes, you say all of your passions come from the things that broke your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Passion doesn't mean I'm excited about something. It means the willingness to suffer. Something that is important enough that I'm willing to suffer for it.
Suffer.
That's passion.
And find meaning to life, which is, I will do whatever it takes to change this system. I will do whatever it takes. And that's long hours, that's flights, that's everything. One more thing before we go, because I know we're getting there. You say that kinship is the core operating system of our species.
Mhm.
And so I know in prisons and in our society, we need kinship. So how do we create this artificial? If it has to be artificial, what do we have to do? What is give me, if you can, I know we have the Veterans Hub, but I'm dealing with people in prison. Is there something I can do to, or we can do it in the prison system to bring kinship to this system?
Yeah, the building blocks or the foundation of kinship is a series of three shared things that are central to our worldview and the decisions we make and the actions we take. Like they're driven off of three big things, and one of them is that shared vision for the future that does not currently exist. So when we look at, the prison system in Denmark that is rehabilitation based, and they're actively shepherding these men and women back into society so they can contribute and serve and participate. That's the vision for what our prison system should be, which does not currently exist. So a shared vision is the first piece, a shared set of values that drive our decision making and action taking, or it's the code or the ethos of the way we operate. And so what are the core values of the way prisons operate? And
Yes.
they're not priorities that are focused on rehabilitation.
Right.
They're focused on control and punishment. So you're creating that loop. And then the last component to create kinship is a set of shared values, or sorry, missions that really involve two big things. One is whatever it is we're working on, whether it's that creating more veterans hubs or more engagement or rehabilitation or teaching meditation or whatever it is, there's going to be struggle and adversity and setback and resistance, and we need collaboration to be able to make that happen. No one person can do it. We need to actively collaborate, which involves, I am struggling with something, I need help. We don't like to share that in our society because it activates abandonment or inadequacy. So we don't share our vulnerabilities.
Right.
So, and therefore we don't get help and we don't get collaboration. So the ability to be transparent and share, this is the mission I'm working on, and I'm struggling with the things. If we can't do that, then we don't activate that human superpower of collaboration. And then the other side of that coin is we're not really sharing our successes either. And so we don't celebrate. So collaboration and celebration should be two big components of every mission that we're working on in our life. Prisons should be sharing, this is where our struggles are, and this is what we're doing great.
Yes.
Everyone in our country should know about this Veterans Hub. Everyone in our country should know about that Masters of Business for Veterans program.
Yes.
Because it's a win. Let's celebrate it. And then here's our struggles that we're having. Help us with this.
Yes. And so what you just laid out was for the prison system. And then what I would like to just kind of reinforce is for every housing unit there can be we can apply these three principles. Wait, what was the first one?
A shared vision for the future.
So a vision and values and mission, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
every housing unit needs to have this information and placard on their wall so we can start working towards that. And so when a guy, has an issue or a psychotic break or something happens to him, his tribe comes around and helps him.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a sea change of behavioral norms that needs to be addressed. And this is a leadership conversation.
Mhm.
There are many people who don't have the developmental skill set. They don't have their prefrontal cortex developed. They haven't had experience of doing that. But the leaders of, whether it be the prisons or education or corporations, they're the ones that literally create culture. And they create it not by what they decree or say or write. It's by what they do. It's what we model. Our kids are not listening to us; they're watching us.
Right.
So, this is probably the greatest leadership quest, is to be looking at, can I generate and share an aspirational vision for the future? Can I model decision making and action taking that moves me towards that future? And can I collaborate and celebrate with all of the missions that I'm engaged with that process? So this is a leadership conversation, and that's really where most of my work is I want to get to the people who have access to those levers of cultural change, and that's leadership.
I know. And, this conversation is just starting because we got to bring the wolf tribe into the prison system. And we already have with the Veterans Hub, and the other work you're doing with the veterans.
And we didn't even talk about resiliency.
Well,
and all of that stuff.
Do you have 2 minutes for resiliency before we go?
Well, hey, just in a nutshell, and we would need another hour for this, but
yeah.
And when you're talking about the guys in prison, the ability to, reclaim your sovereignty and not be pushed around by past traumas and old worldviews, is we need to maintain our emotional regulation. And so meditation, breath work, there's a whole battle tested skill set. And this was given, meditation as an example, this was given to warriors on the battlefield by the gods, like in the Bhagavad Gita. This is not hippy dippy. It's not weak. This is inherently masculine warrior based stuff. That should be a source of pride, to be emotionally regulated and have the ability to respond intentionally instead of react. That is the mature warrior ethos. So for the guys who are listening, explore your emotional regulation practices, your breath work, explore meditation and mindfulness and prayer and whatever version of that makes sense for you. But those are going to be your weapons and your toolkit on that quest for redemption.
Philip Folsom, thank you so much for just inspiring me, and I believe potentially 1 million people in prison. I believe this is going to go viral in the prison system, and I will bring you back when it's time for cultural change in the prison systems, but also for more warrior tips for our dear men and women living in prison.
And Fritz, a huge shout out on your film coming out.
Yes, Veterans Behind Bars. It's coming out, and we will get it. You will all see it soon. We're doing our Academy Award qualification run, and then we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Brilliant. Lots of love.
Okay. Thank you, Philip. Thank you so much, Philip, for bringing your wisdom, your expertise, your vision for this brand new world that we are creating. Thank you for teaching us about the importance of tribe and kinship, bringing information about the hero's journey and just who we are as humans and what we need to do to get ourselves in the game, get off the couch and into the game. As you say, discipline is a response to the sacredness of time, and And it is actually what gets us to the visions that we have. So I hope we have many more conversations, but this one is a great start, and looking forward to seeing what we can create together, both individually and collaboratively. I know there's a lot there for us. If you enjoyed this podcast and YouTube presentation, please go to our website, compassionprisonproject.org. If you enjoyed this podcast presentation, if you enjoyed this YouTube, and if you found this YouTube and podcast presentation valuable, please like, subscribe, and share this content. Also, please visit our website at Compassion Prison Project, where you will find so many resources and so much information about the work that we're doing. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.